Okay, so in this episode, we're going to go over all the config stuff. And to begin with, we're going to open up the description.ext. This is where you're going to change basically the name, the description, and the author of the mission. So this is something that you need to take note on with ARCHub as well, is ARCHub will use these properties as the mission name. So onload name, that gets used as a mission name. So you want this to be, basically what the name of the mission is. So we're just going to put tutorial rather than having, ARC, co-op, and so on. So just keep that as tutorial. The mission description, we can say, I don't know, tutorial mission ARCMF 2.0. And then the author is basically just your name. That doesn't get used on ARCHub, but it does get shown when we load into the mission. And you want to leave these lines here. That's including this config file. So it's basically just taking the contents of this file and just dumping it there. And then what this line is doing is it's just including the contents of the ARC or Bootstrap file, which has all the other shit that you don't really need to care about. So we're going to save that file, close that, and open up the config instead. So we got a whole bunch of stuff in here. We got a bit of documentation as well. And we're going to skip general for now. Don't really need to care about that right now. We've got briefing, and we've got markers, acre, AI, fortify. So we've got quite a lot of stuff in this file. I'm only going to go over really what the syntax is and a bit of description about each of these things, so you can make your own judgment on whether you want to use them or not. So briefing you always have to use. People need to know what your mission's about and how to run it. So in our mission, we're only going to use the blue 4 side. So I'm going to write a briefing for the blue 4, and you've got these different properties here. And the syntax may look a bit scary, but it's quite simple. You've got the name of the property. You got these brackets, which basically tell the game that this is an array. An array basically is more than one thing, and then it's equal to these squirrely little brackets, which is where you put your array elements. So in a situation, the way this is used is each text inside this array is its own paragraph. And I'm going to say string rather than text because it's more correct. And a string is essentially just something in quotes. So this is a string. You could use single quotes, so that's also a string. It depends on really what you want to use, but double quotes are fine. So this thing here, this line here, is going to be paragraph 1. And then the second paragraph is paragraph 2. And when it compiles this into the actual briefing in game, what you're going to get is something like you get something like that. So that'd be the first paragraph, that'd be the second paragraph. So you can really split up your briefings quite neatly doing this, rather than having to, put in your own breakpoints and stuff. But there are times when you want to have single line little bullet points almost to describe like mission objectives and stuff. So you can do that. If you go in a mission array and stuff, you can basically start each string with a dash, and that will treat it as a single line bullet point. So you can say secure town and kill HVT. And then in game, that's essentially just gonna look like, well, exactly what you'd expect, just without the quotes. So it's just gonna look like that, and then above it you'll have mission. So it all kind of looks the same as it does here, but a little bit more formatted in game. So it's very simple to build your briefings up with this kind of syntax. And more importantly, with 2.0, you can actually do dynamic briefing subjects. So what I mean by that is all of these things here aren't hard coded. So what it does is it converts the name of this, like enemy forces, converts that camel case name to a Studley case title. So it will take that E, make that capital, put a space there, and that's the title essentially. So then if you want to have your own briefing names. Let's say, for example, you're making like a really special kind of mission, and you want to have like the rules of the mission or something, kind of like the game. Then you can have your own section called rules, put your rules in here, and you got that. And you can also have maybe winning scenarios. And that's basically just going to translate to something like that. So I don't know if that looks difficult to understand, but it essentially just converts this into a readable format for a title. And it just uses the case. You have to use camel case. And basically what a camel case is the very first word you're using is going to be all lowercase. And then any other word after that starts with an uppercase letter. So you can completely customize the briefings, but for the most part, op-day missions, we're always generally expecting these types of subjects. And when it comes to what you actually need to put inside these particular briefings, the situation is generally like, you know, what's happening, why are we here, what kind of sparked the fight that we're about to take part in. But the situation doesn't really need to have any important information to do with actually completing the mission. It's more of like a preface to the actual objective. So the mission tab is definitely where you put the actual objectives, and that's why I like doing the bullet point, because it's dead simple. You can say, you know, secure the town, capture the doctor or something, and at a glance, everyone knows exactly what their objective is. Enemy forces, you basically want to just, you don't have to put anything in there, but it's nice to tell people, you know, we're fighting the Taliban. They have infantry, they have light vehicles, mortars. So then you can just be like, okay, Taliban, and then light infantry, so on. Same with friendly forces. Maybe you know, sometimes people put friendly forces, like AI friendly forces in a mission, but they're not actually there, quote unquote. They're just kind of, you know, that's kind of like the story. We've got friendlies to the north, so we could put that in there. But generally, I'll just put, you know, we've got infantry, we've got air assets, and that's it. And with the United States or something. Commander's intent. So this is basically, how would you, the mission maker, if you were the commander, how would you want this to play out? Because it is difficult to. Usually, you would make a mission, and you would have a set kind of way of doing it in your head, and then it comes to the op day, and whoever's the commander just does it in a way that you would never even imagine, right? Which is fine. That's you know, that's the way missions go. But if you wanted them to kind of lean them towards a particular direction, then you could put it in commander's intent. You could say maybe use the valley to not die, you know. So it's really up to you what you put in there, but it's about you kind of leading the commander at the time to a particular resolution. Movement plan, a bit kind of similar to the commander's intent, but it's basically, you know, how we're going to move through this mission. Should we use the hillside? Should we use the valley? You can also put information about where possible enemy forces might be, which could change the movement plan. But it doesn't get used that often, but it's there if you need it. Fire support plan, so that's all about, you know, what kind of cash you've got, if you've got mortars, if you've got MMG, MAT teams, air assets. Generally just put anything to do with that in there. Special tasks, that's to do with really any task that is kind of designated to any one unit. So you might have a platoon of general infantry and then have a special forces unit that is tasked with assassinating someone. So that would be a special task. Or it would be maybe a secondary task where primary is to secure a town, secondary is to execute someone or something. So yeah. And then logistics is pretty important. It's to help people with kind of like the the special side stuff of a mission where like you got a resupply or how many seats are in a vehicle. So typically, if we're doing a mission with air assets, you'd want to say something like the UH-60 M has, I don't know, 12 seats excluding pilots. And that really does help for the commander to know very quickly how many people can he fit in a bird. You can also say, you know, we've got resupply available with infantry ammo and launchers. That helps because you know, people might not actually see the resupply boxes, so it's good to write that in there as well. So yeah, that's the briefing. It's the same for everything else. Op, Warrant, Force, Civilian, and Game Master. So that's a Zeus. So that's a little bit different. You might want to tell them, you know, what assets to use, when to, or how many to use, and whatnot. A little thing about text is sometimes you'll need to include a special character that maybe ARCHub or the game will complain at because it doesn't understand it. So for example, if I wanted to have something in quotes, so maybe we are attacking the tribe named, and then I made some extra quotes and said, right, this tribe is called, I don't know, Tachanka. That's in quotes because, you know, quote unquote, that's our name. But the actual string itself is in quotes, and that's the same type of quote. So automatically it's going, okay, let's open up the string from here. Here's some text inside the string, and then it hits the other character, and it's saying, okay, that's the end of the string. You see that? That starts there, does the string, and it ends there. So then this thing here, it doesn't understand that. So an easy way to get around this is you could either change these to single quotes. You see the actual color of that changed. So it's saying it starts with that string character and it ends here, and anything in between it is just whatever you put it there. But if you do want to use double quotes, then you can just double it up like that. So if you double it up, it's saying to escape that, to basically say this is part of the string. So yeah, it's a little something to keep in mind. Okay, so we've got our briefing, and that's really about it. That's the kind of syntax that is used throughout this config. So if we scroll down, we can see we've got markers. You can enable group markers. I'll get onto that in another episode. Same kind of syntax here for the acre radios. So on the Blue Force side, we've got these are the language that they speak. 343, everyone gets a 343, and we've got, you know, different roles and stuff. But it's the exact same syntax, same arrays. So a lot of it is going to carry on the same. And you can see the same thing with AI gear and with Fortify.